Tan Songyun has always been that actress who could light up your screen with the most infectious smile, the kind that makes you forget you're watching someone act because she just feels so genuine, so real, so much like that friend you'd want to grab bubble tea with on a rainy afternoon. From her breakout role in The Whirlwind Girl to stealing hearts in Forever Love, and making us ugly cry in Under the Skin, she's built a career on portraying characters who radiate warmth, resilience, and that quintessentially relatable girl-next-door charm that's made her one of China's most beloved actresses. But in March 2025, the 33-year-old star faced a darkness that no amount of on-screen experience could have prepared her for. Her mother, the woman who had been her anchor, her biggest cheerleader, and the force behind every brave decision she'd made in the cutthroat entertainment industry, passed away after a prolonged illness that the family had kept intensely private. The news broke through a simple heart-shattering Weibo post where Tan Songyun shared a childhood photo, just her as a little girl holding her mother's hand, with a caption that read, "Thank you for everything, Mom. I'll carry your love with me always." No drama, no lengthy explanation, just pure unfiltered grief condensed into a single image and a few words that hit fans like a freight train. What made this loss particularly devastating was the timing. Tan Songyun had been in the middle of promoting her latest drama, and industry insiders revealed she'd been flying back and forth between sets and the hospital for months, hiding her exhaustion behind that trademark smile, never letting the public see her crumbling. Her co-stars later shared that there were days on set where she'd finish an emotional scene, step away, and they'd find her quietly crying in her trailer, not because of the scene, but because reality was so much heavier. Her mother had been her rock since childhood, especially after her father passed away years earlier, making this loss feel like losing her last connection to home, to safety, to unconditional love. Fans who'd followed Tan Songyun's career remembered how she'd often credited her mother in interviews, talking about how Mom had supported her decision to pursue acting despite financial struggles, how Mom had stayed up late helping her memorize scripts when she was just starting out, how Mom never missed a premiere even when her health started declining. The funeral was held privately in her hometown of Sichuan, with only close family and a handful of industry friends in attendance, but the outpouring of support from fans and colleagues was staggering. Hundreds of thousands of comments flooding social media with condolences, fan projects donating to cancer research in her mother's name, and fellow actors sharing their own stories of loss to remind her she wasn't alone. What's remarkable about Tan Songyun's response to this tragedy is how it revealed the depth of her character beyond the roles she plays. Instead of disappearing from public view entirely, she took a brief hiatus, then returned to work with a quiet determination that spoke volumes about the values her mother instilled in her: resilience, professionalism, and the understanding that life, even in its darkest moments, continues. In interviews after her return, when asked how she's coping, she's been refreshingly honest, saying some days are harder than others, but I know my mom would want me to keep going, to keep creating, to keep living fully. It's that raw honesty, that refusal to pretend grief has a timeline or an endpoint, that's made her journey through loss resonate with millions who've experienced similar pain. Behind every smile she gives in her new projects, there's now a layer of depth, a understanding of sorrow that can't be acted, only lived. Tan Songyun's mother may no longer be physically present, but in every strong female character she portrays, in every interview where she talks about perseverance, in every moment she chooses to keep going despite the weight of grief, her mother's influence remains undeniable, a legacy of love that transcends death itself. Sukai has built his entire brand on being the guy who can handle anything, the stoic warrior in The Legends, the passionate lover in Arsenal Military Academy, the complex hero in The Eternal Love, who faces down demons and emperors without flinching. With his chiseled features, intense gaze, and that physicality that makes every fight scene look effortlessly cool, he's become the go-to actor for roles that demand strength, both emotional and physical. But here's what nobody tells you about the strong ones: they break too, just differently, just quieter, just in ways that make the eventual collapse all the more devastating. In early June 2025, Sukai's world shattered when his mother passed away suddenly from a heart attack at their family home in Shenzhen. She was only 58 years old, vibrant and healthy by all accounts, making her death not just tragic but shockingly unexpected, the kind of loss that rips through a family like lightning because there was no time to prepare, no gradual goodbye, just here one moment and gone the next. The 29-year-old actor was on location filming his latest historical drama in Hongdian when he got the call, and according to crew members who were present, the transformation was immediate and terrifying. This man who'd spent years perfecting the art of emotional control, who could cry on command for a scene then laugh it off between takes, just completely shut down. He left set within hours, didn't speak to anyone, didn't post anything publicly, just vanished into private grief so complete that even his management team couldn't reach him for days. What makes Sukai's story particularly heartbreaking is understanding the relationship he had with his mother, something he'd rarely discussed in interviews because he's always been intensely private about family matters, but those close to him paint a picture of a bond that went beyond typical mother-son dynamics. His mother had been a single parent for much of his teenage years after his parents divorced, working multiple jobs to support his dreams when he decided to pursue modeling and acting instead of the stable career path she'd initially hoped for him. She was the one who drove him to auditions when he couldn't afford taxi fare, the one who sat through every early performance even when he had roles so small he barely appeared on stage, the one who believed in him when the industry kept rejecting him for being too tall, too unconventional, too intense for leading man roles. When he finally broke through with Story of Yenchi Palace, becoming an overnight sensation at 26, his first major purchase wasn't a luxury car or designer clothes. It was a house for his mother, a spacious apartment in a good neighborhood where she could finally rest after decades of sacrifice. Industry insiders say she just moved into that house 3 months before her death, that Sukai had been planning to take her on a vacation to Europe once his filming schedule cleared, that he'd been texting her daily updates from set, sharing meals over video calls, making plans for a future that would never come. The funeral was held in strict privacy, but leaked photos showed Sukai looking like a shell of himself, gaunt, hollow-eyed, aged years in a matter of days, supported physically by friends because he seemed barely able to stand on his own. His agency released a statement asking for privacy and announcing an indefinite hiatus from all projects, which sent shockwaves through the industry because Sukai had 3 major dramas in various stages of production, endorsement deals worth millions, and a career trajectory that had him positioned as one of the next big things in Chinese entertainment. But here's where you see someone's true character. Instead of rushing back to salvage contracts and save face, Sukai chose to truly grieve, to honor his mother's memory by taking the time she'd never gotten to take for herself. When he finally returned to social media 2 months later, it wasn't with a glossy comeback post or a promotional blitz. It was a simple black and white photo of his mother from her youth, beautiful and smiling, with a caption that read, "Everything I am, everything I'll ever be, I owe to you. Rest now, Mom. I've got it from here." The vulnerability in those words, the acknowledgement that he's not okay and might never be fully okay again, resonated deeply with fans who'd only ever seen his strong, controlled public persona. What's emerged in the months since is a different Sukai. Still professional, still dedicated to his craft, but with an openness about mental health and grief that's rare in an industry that demands perfection. He's talked about therapy, about the guilt of wishing he'd spent more time at home instead of on sets, about the weird reality of your parent becoming a memory instead of a phone call away. His upcoming projects have taken on new dimensions too. He's gravitating toward roles that explore father-son dynamics, family sacrifice, the weight of unfulfilled promises, as if working through his grief on screen is the only way he knows how to process it. Fellow actors who've worked with him since his return say there's a depth to his performances now that wasn't there before, a understanding of loss that can't be taught in any acting class, only lived through and survived. Sukai's mother may not have lived to see him reach his full potential, but in his determination to keep going, to honor her sacrifices by becoming not just successful but genuinely good at what he does, her legacy lives on in every frame he inhabits, every character he brings to life, every moment he chooses to be vulnerable instead of just strong. Lu Yuning isn't your typical C-drama heartthrob, and that's exactly why millions of fans have fallen hard for this guy who crashed into the entertainment industry from the most unlikely direction, belting out rock ballads in a live streaming room, guitar in hand, raw talent on full display, zero connections, zero industry backing, just pure skill and a voice that could make you feel every emotion he channeled through a microphone. From those scrappy live stream days to becoming the breakout star of Forever and Ever, the scene stealer in Who Rules the World, and the magnetic presence in The Blood of Youth, his journey has been the definition of a self-made success story, the kind that makes you believe talent really can triumph over industry politics and nepotism. But in late August 2025, the 35-year-old singer-turned-actor faced a reality check that no amount of success could cushion. His mother passed away after a battle with lung cancer that she'd hidden from him for nearly a year because, in her words shared through family members later, she didn't want to distract him from his dreams. Let that sink in for a moment. Here's a woman who watched her son struggle for years, singing in bars and online for tips, finally break through into legitimate stardom, and instead of asking him to pause his skyrocketing career to care for her, she chose to suffer in silence, to let him keep climbing while she quietly faded. The news broke when Lu Yuning abruptly canceled all scheduled appearances and his band Modern Brothers released a statement that was devastatingly simple. "Our brother needs time. Please understand." What followed was a social media excavation by fans who pieced together a story that made the loss even more poignant. Lu Yuning had been supporting his parents financially since his live stream days started taking off, had bought them a comfortable home in Dandong, his hometown in Liaoning province, and had frequently flown back between shoots to visit, never knowing his mother was hiding chemotherapy appointments and declining health behind cheerful video calls where she'd ask about his projects and remind him to eat well. His mother had been there from the absolute beginning, before the fame, before the fans, before anyone believed a guy singing covers on the internet could become a legitimate star. She was the one who encouraged him to keep performing when he wanted to give up and get a real job. The one who told relatives to stop criticizing his choices, because she could see something special in him that others couldn't. In interviews from years back, Lu Yuning had often mentioned his mother's unwavering support, how she'd been his first audience when he learned guitar as a teenager, how she never complained about the noise when he practiced for hours in their small apartment, how she'd saved money from her modest job to help him buy better equipment. Industry friends revealed that he'd been planning something special for her. A documentary about his journey from live streamer to actor, with her as the central figure, the unsung hero of his success story. He'd even started filming interviews with her earlier in the year, casual conversations where she shared stories about his childhood, his determination, his early failures, and how he'd dust himself off and try again. That footage now exists as something else entirely, not just behind-the-scenes material but precious final recordings of a woman who believed in her son when the world hadn't caught up yet. The funeral in Dandong drew not just family but members of his band, co-stars from various projects, and hundreds of local fans who stood outside in respectful silence, many holding signs that read, "We're sorry for your loss," and "Your mom raised an amazing man." What absolutely destroyed fans was learning that Lu Yuning's mother had watched every single episode of every drama he'd been in, sometimes multiple times, and had kept a scrapbook of magazine covers, online articles, and fan art that people had drawn of her son, a physical manifestation of her pride that she'd maintained privately while he lived his public life. When Lu Yuning finally returned to social media 6 weeks later, he didn't post a photo or a lengthy statement. He uploaded a video of himself performing an acoustic version of Mother, a song he'd written but never released publicly, his voice cracking in places, tears streaming down his face, no production value, just raw grief transformed into music. The caption was gut-wrenching. "I wrote this for you years ago but was waiting for the perfect time to record it properly. I guess this is that time, though nothing about it feels perfect. I'm so sorry I didn't know. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. But I promise, Mom, everything I do from now on carries your love with it." The video went viral not because of technical quality, but because of its devastating honesty. Here was a man who'd built a career on performing, stripped down to his most vulnerable, using the only language he truly knows to process grief that words alone couldn't capture. His return to work has been gradual and intentional, with Lu Yuning being selective about projects in a way he wasn't before, gravitating toward stories about family, sacrifice, and unspoken love. Cast members from his current drama say he's different now. Still professional, still talented, but with a weight to his emotional scenes that comes from somewhere deeper, somewhere real. He's also become an advocate for cancer awareness, using his platform to encourage people to get screenings, to not hide illness from loved ones, to have those difficult conversations before it's too late. In a recent interview, when asked how he's coping, Lu Yuning said something that perfectly captures his journey through grief. "My mom was my first fan when I had 0 followers. She believed in me when I was nobody. Now I have millions of supporters, but the one person whose pride mattered most isn't here to see where it's all gone. So I carry her with me. In every song, every role, every choice I make. She's not in the audience anymore, but she's everywhere." And somehow, through the heartbreak, through the irreversible loss, Lu Yuning has transformed his mother's absence into a presence that informs everything he creates, proving that the people who shape us don't stop influencing our art just because they're gone. Sometimes their impact becomes even more profound. Songyun has been in the public eye since she was literally a child, one of those rare cases where someone grows up entirely under the scrutiny of cameras, evolving from the adorable kid in Bao Lian Deng Qian Zhuan, at age 6 to the sophisticated leading lady in The Brightest Star in the Sky, Love in Between, and Gank Your Heart. We've watched her navigate that impossibly tricky transition from child actress to adult star, a journey that destroys more careers than it launches, yet she's managed it with grace, talent, and a maturity that always seemed beyond her years. But here's the devastating truth nobody talks about. When you grow up fast in the industry, when you become the family breadwinner before you're old enough to drive, when your childhood is scheduled down to the minute with tutors and scripts and promotional appearances, you miss out on simply being a kid, and sometimes that accelerated timeline means facing adult tragedies far too young. In September 2025, just 2 months after her 24th birthday, Songyun experienced a loss that no amount of early maturity could have prepared her for. Her mother passed away from complications related to diabetes and kidney failure, illnesses that had been slowly ravaging her body for the past 3 years while Songyun worked non-stop to afford the best medical care money could buy. The irony is suffocating. This young woman had been acting since childhood partly to support her family, had sacrificed normal developmental experiences to build a career that could provide financial security, and despite all that success, despite all that money, despite access to top specialists, she couldn't save the person who'd sacrificed everything to launch her career in the first place. The news came through an Instagram post that was almost childlike in its simplicity. A photo of Songyun as a toddler being held by her mother, both smiling at the camera, with a caption that read, "Mama, I'm not ready. I'll never be ready. How do I do this without you?" The vulnerability, the regression to calling her mama instead of the more formal mother. The admission that despite being a seasoned actress who'd played every emotion imaginable, she had no script for this, no director to yell cut, no way to reset and try the scene again. It broke the internet. Within hours, trending topics exploded across Weibo, with fans sharing their own stories of parental loss, with fellow child stars reaching out publicly to offer support, with the industry collectively acknowledging what many had suspected. Songyun's seemingly perfect career had been built on foundations far more fragile and painful than anyone realized. Her mother had been her manager for years, the stereotypical stage mom that tabloids love to criticize. But those close to the family paint a more nuanced picture. Yes, she'd been demanding and protective and perhaps pushed Songyun harder than some thought appropriate, but she'd also shielded her daughter from predatory industry practices, had negotiated fiercely for fair pay when Songyun was too young to understand her own value, had homeschooled her between shoots so she wouldn't fall behind academically, had essentially devoted every waking hour to ensuring this talented child didn't become another cautionary tale of exploitation and burnout. When Songyun transitioned to adult roles and brought in professional management, her mother stepped back from the business side but remained her closest confidant, the person she'd call after every premiere, every award nomination, every relationship drama, every moment of doubt about whether this life she'd been living since age 6 was truly her choice or just the only path she'd ever known. Industry insiders revealed heartbreaking details in the weeks following the announcement. Songyun had been juggling an intense filming schedule with daily hospital visits, sometimes sleeping in her car between the set and the medical facility, because it was faster than going home. She'd put 3 projects on hold earlier in the year when her mother's condition worsened, taking a financial hit that her team advised against, but as she reportedly told them, "What's the point of any of this if I lose her?" She'd been researching kidney transplants, had gotten tested as a potential donor, had been willing to pause her career entirely for the surgery, but her mother's health declined too rapidly, complications arising faster than treatments could address them. The funeral was a surreal mixture of private grief and public spectacle. Songyun had requested a small, family-only ceremony, but the venue in Beijing was surrounded by fans holding candles, creating a sea of light that could be seen from inside, a visual reminder that her mourning, like everything else in her life, couldn't be entirely private. Photos from inside showed Songyun barely holding herself upright, supported by her father and younger brother, her face a mask of devastation that no amount of professional training could compose. What's particularly gutting about Songyun's loss is how it's forced a reckoning with her entire career, her entire identity. In a recent interview conducted via email because she wasn't ready for cameras yet, she wrote candidly about the guilt that's consuming her, guilt that she'd sometimes resented her mother's involvement in her career, guilt about times she'd chosen work over family dinners because there would always be tomorrow, guilt about the fundamental question of whether all the success, all the fame, all the money was worth the childhood she never had and the adult relationship with her mother she never got enough time to develop. She's been in therapy, she's taken a sabbatical from acting for the first time in 18 years, and she's been spending time with her father and brother. Dylan Wong exploded into global consciousness with a smile that could launch 1,000 ships and a role that redefined what it meant to be a modern Asian heartthrob. Dao Mingxi in the 2018 reboot of Meteor Garden turned this relative unknown into an international phenomenon practically overnight, and he's spent the years since proving he's far more than just a pretty face with killer chemistry, delivering nuanced performances in The Rational Life, Love Between Fairy and Devil, and Cute, programmer that showcased genuine range and dedication to craft. At just 26 years old, he's already achieved what most actors spend lifetimes chasing: worldwide recognition, devoted fanbase spanning continents, commercial success that's made him one of the most bankable young stars in Chinese entertainment. But as anyone who's experienced real loss knows, success means absolutely nothing when tragedy strikes. And in October 2025, Dylan Wong's carefully constructed world came crashing down when his mother passed away unexpectedly from a cerebral hemorrhage at their family home in Chengdu. She was 52 years old in seemingly good health, and her death was so sudden that Dylan didn't even get a chance to say goodbye. He was in Thailand filming a new series when it happened, and by the time he got the emergency call and caught the first flight back to China, she was already gone, leaving him with a grief compounded by the torture of what-ifs and if-onlys that can haunt a person forever. The initial announcement came from his studio, a brief statement requesting privacy and canceling all upcoming schedules indefinitely, but what really gutted fans was the photo Dylan posted 3 days later. A simple image of his mother's hands holding his when he was clearly a small child, her fingers completely enveloping his tiny ones, with a caption that destroyed everyone who read it. These hands held mine through every stumble, every fear, every moment I thought I couldn't go on. Now I'm stumbling again, and I don't know how to walk without you guiding me. Mama, I'm so lost. The vulnerability, the rawness, the complete absence of the confident, charismatic persona he projects professionally. It was a glimpse into genuine devastation that reminded everyone that behind the magazine covers and brand endorsements and screaming fans is just a young man who lost his mother far too soon. What makes Dylan Wong's story particularly heartbreaking is understanding the role his mother played not just in his life, but in his unlikely journey to stardom. Dylan wasn't a trained actor, wasn't from an entertainment family, wasn't even particularly interested in performing arts. He was a flight attendant with Sichuan Airlines, a regular guy with a regular job, when he got scouted at an airport and convinced to audition for Meteor Garden. His mother was skeptical at first, worried about the industry's reputation, concerned about the instability of entertainment careers, but she ultimately supported his decision because, as family friends later revealed, she'd always taught her son to pursue opportunities that excited him, even if they seemed risky. When he got cast and moved to Beijing for training and filming, she was the person he'd video call every night, sharing his anxieties about whether he was good enough, whether people would accept him in such an iconic role, whether he'd made a terrible mistake leaving stable employment for a gamble. She talked him through panic attacks before big scenes, reminded him why he'd taken the leap in the first place, and was apparently the first person he called when Meteor Garden became a massive hit and his life changed irrevocably overnight. Throughout his rapid ascent, Dylan's mother remained his anchor to reality, the person who could cut through the industry noise and speak truth to him in ways management and publicists never could. He'd frequently fly back to Chengdu between projects, and neighbors reported seeing him just being a normal son, grocery shopping with his mom, taking her to her favorite restaurants, walking their family dog through the neighborhood like he wasn't being mobbed by fans everywhere else he went. She reportedly kept his bedroom exactly as he'd left it before moving to Beijing, a shrine to the normal life he'd left behind, and would cook his favorite Sichuan dishes whenever he visited, insisting he was getting too thin from the industry's brutal scheduling and dietary demands. Industry colleagues who met her described a warm, humble woman who was clearly proud of her son but never sought spotlight or special treatment, content to watch his success from the sidelines and just be his mother, not Dylan Wong's mother, the public figure. The funeral in Chengdu was closed to media but well attended by Dylan's closest friends in the industry, including his Meteor Garden co-stars who flew in to support him, and the family requested donations to stroke and brain health research instead of flowers, turning personal tragedy into potential prevention for others. What emerged in the weeks following was a picture of Dylan Wong completely unraveling. Credible reports from people close to the situation described him as non-functional, unable to eat or sleep, questioning whether he even wanted to continue in an industry that had kept him away from his mother during what turned out to be her final months. There was genuine concern among his team that he might walk away from everything, that the guilt of choosing career over family time would consume him entirely. His agency extended his hiatus indefinitely, releasing statements that essentially said, he'll return, when and if he's ready, which sent shockwaves through an industry not known for patience with grieving stars who have contractual obligations and commercial commitments. But Dylan's situation was handled with unusual compassion, perhaps because his youth and the suddenness of the loss created a protective instinct even in the notoriously cutthroat entertainment business. When he finally resurfaced on social media in late November, Zhao Lucy is the embodiment of infectious joy in human form, the actress whose smile could power entire cities, whose bubbly personality and girl-next-door charm have made her the nation's little sweetness, and turned every drama she touches into comfort food for the soul. From, oh, my emperor to Romance of Tiger and Rose, from Love Like the Galaxy to Hidden Love, she's built an empire on playing characters that radiate warmth, optimism, and that irresistible energy that makes you believe everything will work out in the end, because how could it not, when someone this genuinely delightful exists? At 26 years old, she's achieved a level of success that seemed almost effortless, her natural charisma and work ethic propelling her from idol drama darling to critically respected actress capable of carrying massive productions, and through it all she's maintained this public image of perpetual sunshine, the girl who's always smiling, always grateful, always radiating positive vibes that make her brand partnerships and endorsement deals feel less like commercials and more like recommendations from a trusted friend. But in November 2025, that carefully cultivated sunshine hit an eclipse it couldn't penetrate. Zhao Lucy's mother passed away from ovarian cancer at the age of 54, ending a battle that the actress had kept almost entirely hidden from public view, protecting both her mother's privacy and her own public image as the girl who makes everything seem easy and bright. The announcement came through a Weibo post that felt like a punch to the gut precisely because of how it contrasted with everything we thought we knew about Zhao Lucy. A black screen with white text, no photo, no embellishment, just stark words. My mother fought with grace and courage. She lost her battle today. I need time to remember how to breathe. The simplicity, the admission that basic functions like breathing had become difficult, the complete absence of her trademark exclamation marks and emoji and enthusiastic energy. It was like watching someone's light switch get turned off in real time, and fans globally experienced a collective moment of realizing that the person who'd been making them smile had been hiding unimaginable pain behind that same smile for months or possibly years. What makes Zhao Lucy's situation particularly devastating is the gradual revelation, pieced together through industry whispers and careful timeline analysis by fans, of just how much she'd been concealing while maintaining her relentlessly positive public persona. Her mother had been diagnosed with late-stage ovarian cancer approximately 18 months before her passing, right around when Zhao Lucy was filming Hidden Love, the drama that would become one of 2023's biggest hits and cement her status as a top-tier actress. Throughout that entire period, the diagnosis, the initial treatments, the hope, the decline, the desperate final months, Zhao Lucy had maintained her regular posting schedule, her enthusiastic behind-the-scenes content, her sweet interactions with fans, never once letting on that she was living a double life, performing happiness for millions while privately watching her mother slowly die. Industry friends later revealed she'd been coordinating her shooting schedules around chemotherapy appointments, flying back to Chengdu whenever possible to be with her mother, sometimes for just a few hours before returning to set, functioning on minimal sleep and maximum compartmentalization, keeping her professional obligations separate from her personal devastation with a discipline that's honestly terrifying to contemplate. Her mother had been her original champion, the parent who'd supported her decision to enter the entertainment industry when she was just 16, who'd accompanied her to Beijing for her first auditions, who'd helped her navigate the early years when work was inconsistent and rejections were frequent and the dream seemed perpetually out of reach. In old interviews from her early career, Zhao Lucy frequently mentioned her mother's advice. Work hard, stay kind, and remember that success means nothing if you're not a good person first. It was foundational to the brand Zhao Lucy built. She wasn't just talented and beautiful, she was genuinely nice, the rare celebrity who seemed to treat crew members and co-stars with equal warmth, who remembered fans' usernames, who never let fame make her mean, and all of that traced directly back to her mother's influence and values. When Zhao Lucy achieved breakthrough success with Love Like the Galaxy, one of the first things she did was buy her parents a house in a nice neighborhood in Chengdu, and according to neighbors, her mother had been so proud, showing everyone photos of her daughter on magazine covers and telling anyone who'd listen about how hard Zhao Lucy had worked to get there. But that house, purchased as a symbol of gratitude and success, became something else entirely, a place where Zhao Lucy would spend her breaks from filming sitting beside her increasingly frail mother, trying to be strong, trying to be the sunshine girl her mother had raised, even as the darkness closed in. The funeral was held privately in Chengdu with just immediate family, but the public memorial organized by fans was staggering. Thousands of people gathered at designated locations across China and internationally, holding candles and flowers, many crying for a woman they'd never met but who'd raised someone who'd brought them joy, as if mourning the mother of sunshine itself. What absolutely destroyed the fanbase was footage that emerged from what turned out to be Zhao Lucy's final public appearance before her mother's death. A promotional event for The Romance of Tiger and Rose 2, where she'd seemed slightly subdued, but had still performed her expected enthusiasm, smiling and waving and doing fan service. Xiao Zhan occupies a rarefied space in Chinese entertainment. He's not just a celebrity, he's a cultural phenomenon, a once-in-a-generation talent whose trajectory from struggling design graduate to member of X9 to absolute superstardom through The Untamed has been so meteoric, so unprecedented, that his name has become synonymous with success itself, and his every project, every endorsement, every public appearance generates headlines and breaks records and confirms his status as arguably the biggest male star in Chinese entertainment right now. From The Oath of Love to The Longest Promise, From Where Dreams Begin to Sunshine by My Side, he's proven himself capable of carrying any genre, any character, any narrative weight with a combination of technical skill, emotional depth, and that indefinable charisma that separates good actors from icons. At 33 years old, he's achieved what most performers only dream about: legitimate, sustainable, massive success with a fanbase so devoted they're studied by marketers trying to understand modern celebrity economics. But here's the crushing reality about being that successful, that visible, that important to so many people's lives. When tragedy strikes your personal world, you don't get to grieve privately, you don't get to fall apart quietly, you have to navigate the worst moment of your life while millions watch, analyze, and project their own emotions onto your pain. In December 2025, just weeks ago, Songyun faced exactly that nightmare scenario when his mother passed away suddenly from a massive stroke at their family home in Chongqing. She was 59 years old, had shown no prior symptoms, and her death was so shockingly unexpected that even close family members are still processing the whiplash of someone being fine one moment and gone the next. That specific torture of having no time to prepare, no gradual goodbye, just the violent amputation of a crucial relationship with zero warning. The news broke not through official channels but through leaked information from hospital staff that spread on social media before Songyun's team could control the narrative, which meant he was dealing with the worst moment of his life while simultaneously trying to manage public relations and protect his family's privacy, and handle the immediate logistics of death, funeral arrangements, family notification, legal matters, all while trending on every platform and becoming the subject of millions of posts, articles, and speculative think pieces about his emotional state. His studio released a statement within hours asking for respect and privacy, announcing the cancellation of all scheduled activities indefinitely, but the genie was already out of the bottle, and the machinery of celebrity gossip had already begun churning out content about his loss, analyzing his last public appearance for signs of distress, tracking his movements, turning his mother's death into content, into clicks, into the very thing that makes genuine grieving almost impossible when you're that famous. What makes Songyun's situation uniquely painful is understanding the specific relationship he had with his mother, and how fundamental she was to not just his personal identity, but his professional existence. Songyun has always been notably private about family, rarely discussing his parents in interviews, keeping that part of his life sacred and separate from his public persona. But those who know him well paint a picture of a man deeply devoted to family, someone who despite the chaos of superstardom maintained regular contact with his parents, someone who credited them privately for keeping him grounded when the industry threatened to warp his sense of reality. His mother had been a middle school teacher, a woman of modest means and practical values who'd supported her son's artistic ambitions even when they seemed impractical, who'd encouraged him to pursue design school even though it meant financial strain, who'd been quietly proud when he made it into X9 but concerned about the industry's demands and toll on his well-being, and who'd apparently had very mixed feelings about his explosive fame after The Untamed, proud of his success but worried about the psychological price of that level of visibility and scrutiny. Industry insiders who've known Songyun throughout his career say his mother was his reality check, the person who could tell him when he was taking himself too seriously or when he needed to rest or when a project was wrong for him regardless of the money, and he actually listened because her opinion carried weight that agents and managers and even close friends couldn't replicate. She'd known him before any of this mattered, before he was Songyun the megastar, when he was just her son, trying to figure out his path. After The Untamed changed his life, one of his first major purchases was reportedly a comfortable apartment for his parents in a safe, quiet neighborhood in Chongqing. Zhao Liang is the definition of a self-made success story, the ultimate underdog who clawed her way from absolutely nothing to the absolute top through sheer talent, relentless work ethic, and a refusal to let industry gatekeepers or critics or doubters define her trajectory. From rural poverty in Hebei province to working as a sales clerk to entering entertainment through a talent competition to grinding through years of supporting roles before finally breaking through with The Journey of Flower, then cementing legendary status with Princess Agents, the story of Minglan, Legend of Fei, Who Rules the World, and the story of Pearl Girl. She's become one of the highest paid, most respected, most commercially successful actresses in China without any of the advantages most stars take for granted like industry connections, elite training, wealthy family backing, or conventional beauty standards. At 37 years old, she's proven that talent and determination can overcome literally everything the industry throws at you, building an empire on her own terms, on her own timeline, with a fierce independence that's made her both admired and slightly intimidating to those who've had easier paths. But every fighter has that one person in their corner who made the fight possible, who believed before anyone else did, who sacrificed so the fighter could swing, and for Zhao Liang, that person was unquestionably her mother. And in early December 2025, just weeks ago, that irreplaceable corner woman, that original believer, passed away from heart failure at the age of 63, taking with her not just Zhao Liying's greatest supporter, but the living proof that all the struggle, all the sacrifice, all the years of barely surviving while chasing an impossible dream had been worth it, because look what her daughter had become. The announcement came through a statement from her studio that was notably raw for typically professional communications. Our artist Zhao Liying's mother passed away on December 8 after a sudden cardiac event. Zhao Liying is devastated and will be taking indefinite leave from all professional commitments. We ask for understanding and privacy during this impossibly difficult time. What hit different about this announcement was the phrase impossibly difficult. Not just difficult but impossibly so, as if even the professionals writing the statement couldn't maintain complete detachment, couldn't help but acknowledge that this wasn't routine grief. This was something that threatened to break someone we'd all watched survive everything else the world threw at her. Within hours, the industry essentially shut down conversation about her projects, with production companies and brand partners releasing statements that were unanimously supportive and patient, a rare show of collective compassion in an industry not known for accommodating personal tragedy when money and schedules are involved. But even the most ruthless executives seemed to understand that Zhao Liying losing her mother was different, was catastrophic in ways that demanded humanity over business. Understanding why this loss is so devastating requires understanding where Zhao Liying came from, and how instrumental her mother was in that journey from nothing to everything. Zhao Liying grew up in genuine poverty in a small village in Hebei, the kind of rural hardship that urban Chinese audiences sometimes forget still exists. No running water, limited electricity, family income dependent on farming and manual labor, education constantly threatened by economic instability. Her parents were simple farmers with elementary school education. People who'd accepted their lot in life and expected their children would follow similar paths. But Zhao Liying's mother saw something different in her daughter, some spark of possibility that didn't fit the predetermined script. When teenage Zhao Liying announced she wanted to move to the city and pursue entertainment, it was a declaration that made no practical sense. She had no training, no connections, no money, no realistic path to success. But her mother didn't laugh, didn't shut it down, didn't insist she accept reality like every other adult in their village would have. Instead, she worked extra hours, saved money from household expenses, and helped fund Zhao Liying's move to Beijing with approximately 1,000 yuan, which was a fortune for their family and represented months of sacrifice, all gambled on a daughter's impossible dream. During those brutal early years in Beijing, when Zhao Liying was working sales jobs during the day and attending auditions at night, living in basement apartments, eating instant noodles to save money, facing endless rejection and occasional harassment, and the daily psychological toll of pursuing something that seemed increasingly delusional,